This Hello, everybody. We have a very special guest here tonight with us. We're going to be talking to the legendary Scott Carpenter's son, Travis, and we are very, very happy to have him here and honored to have him here. I believe and have always believed that he found the truth, that the truth was found by him, and he was way ahead of the ball. I know Brooks is excited tonight to talk to Travis. She knew Scott Carpenter's work a lot better than I did. I didn't get into the cryptids till a lot later, but we're very honored that Travis is going to give us his time tonight and some of his knowledge that he has and the knowledge passed from his dad. Anything y'all want to add before we start and bring in Travis?
No, just thank you for being here.
Yeah.
We're honored to have you here.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me on tonight. I'm really honored and appreciate it, and just thank you guys. Thank you.
Oh, we appreciate you coming on. Like I said, I believe that, and I've always believed that he was on the right path, and I think he figured it out. I really do. I think that's what it is.
I heard that. For those that don't know what we're talking about, so Dad, just kind of shameless plug on my dad. My dad is a Bigfoot researcher. He wrote several books. One of the books that was pretty controversial was The Nephilim Among Us, and then he published The Truth Denied. It's about a DNA study that him and Melba Ketchum and others, not just those two, really worked on. David Pilates and all them. One of the biggest things with that was that what came out was you had the mitochondrial DNA of the Bigfoot were human, which is very interesting. But the nuclear DNA, the deep down DNA, hard to get, was that of unknown. And we're not talking just one single strand of DNA. We're talking about 3 full genomes of DNA. So we're talking a lot of it. He helped collect it. He helped do tons of different researching methods. And that in itself kind of led him to go into the biblical look of it and come to the conclusion that I like you said, Mr. Mike, and it's believed that these creatures are Nephilim or Nephilim descendants, and that, my friends, has been one of the most controversial things. If you didn't think Bigfoot was controversial, say they're Nephilim and see what happens.
Exactly, yeah. And I've caught a lot over, because I agree with your dad 100% that they're a Nephilim, and whenever I base a lot of my studies on biblical principles, and I learned as an investigator, whenever you investigate something, you always start with what you can prove, and then you work out from that. To me, the Bible is 100% truth.
Absolutely,
so whenever
brother.
You put it all together, and man, the pieces fit, and it ain't like you have to make them fit; they just fall in place.
Absolutely. A lot of people will talk about Nephilim in the Bible, and they'll talk about how Genesis 6 means the sons of Seth, and it's just this and that, and I'm sorry, that's just not historically accurate. It's not biblically accurate. When you look at the Hebrew text, when you look at the words used, and the words used in Job is that same word. It talks about the sons of God coming before the throne. It talks about angels, angelic beings. And it's just, you talk about that, and people want to try to twist even the Bible to say like, angels never came down and mated with human women, and there's no such thing as Nephilim, or a Nephilim is something other than an angel and a human being. And you'll have, and that, in my opinion, has been one of the greatest arguments in the Bible that no one talks about, is what are, this whole Sethite theory versus Nephilim theory. And then you say, okay, if Nephilim do exist, where are they? And then you've had this Bigfoot phenomenon for millennia. Not just, it's gotten popular in the past 50 years, but Bigfoot have been around, and we have records of people writing about these as long as we've existed. what is it? Buffalo Bill, has, talks about it. There's so much about them. And then, so then you have to try to figure out where these exist in people's brains. Mm-hmm. And I think people just don't like anything outside of their little box. And even the Bigfoot community doesn't like things outside of their little box either. So I find it all funny being kind of born into this community, if that makes sense. I just find it funny that everyone has their own little box, even though they claim to think outside the box.
Right.
That's right.
My mom and them, since they were kids, 1940s or 50s, they lived down at my granny's house forever, and my uncle decided he's going to take his girlfriend out on a spook hunt, and they had done it many times, and this particular time, something jumped out of the trees down onto the car, ran off the front of the car. They start the car, drove straight to my granny's, which is probably 6-7 miles as a crow flies across the lake. That night, whatever this thing is, it shows up at the house. It sounds like Granny said a coffee pot percolating. And from that night on, things progressed and progressed. But the weird thing was, and what made me start thinking about Nephilim, about having angelic powers, is because not everything that happened there would have been something completely physical would have done. For instance, stuff in the kitchen would sound like beans would fall and spill all over the floor. They would run in there and there's nothing. There was other things going on with the knocking and the scratching and the growling, and the little dog they had, it loved it. The little dog would go outside in the rain and come back to the door, be dry as a bone. Whatever it was taking care of it. It couldn't wait to go outside. They had a friend, my mom and them, and it took forever to get him to tell us what happened, but he was a big boy in school back then, and he was the rough, tough guy that whooped everybody. And he said, I'll come down there and take care of it. It's probably some guy being a pervert. So he's sitting on the couch. It starts up. Mom said same time every night, 8:30. He runs out back, runs back in the house, and they said his face was as white as his T-shirt, and he just fell on the couch. He wouldn't talk about it for years. And like in 2021, I reached out to him. He was an older gentleman then. Still told me he didn't want to talk about it. He ended up getting COVID, and he wrote a letter to me while he was sick, and he finally said that he thought people should know. And he said whenever he walked around the back of my granny's house, what he saw, and he said, I don't know any other way to explain it. He said it was a werewolf, and he said it was standing there, and it was eating the scraps. My granny would dump scraps out of her back door to the chickens and everything. And he said it was taking the food and it was cramming it in the side of its face, and he said it had the food all over it. And he said it looked at me, and when it looked at me, he said it said hello. And he said I knew at that point that if it wanted me, it could have me, and he ran. And he said it was just something he never wanted to bring up. And I know your dad, he saw some pretty scary things out there too.
He did. And one of the things that dad and anything, I want to say this, is anything that you guys saw when it came to YouTube, Dad had ran by me and my sister Miranda and talked about us for, weeks before he ever, just to try to process it. And one of the big things is very similar to that gentleman that you talked about. So, Dad was okay and kind of understood, and like I said, had that Bigfoot box. And he has something extremely similar happen, and that was this Dogman encounter. He's out there doing some stuff, and goes out and he's seeing these weird tracks, and he's just kind of looking around, and he had this film, and he goes back and he looks on this film. And he sees, out of his back trail camera, this picture of this Dogman, where it's at. And he's, and it's the famous one that everybody's kind of seen, where it's that Dogman kind of pushing through. And he goes and he talks to David Pilates, and he's like, David, look at what we've got here. And that was right when the Melba Ketchum DNA study was kind of about to come out. And David was like, hey, man, let's keep this under wraps for a little bit. Let's not let people think we're totally nuts. We're trying to do this Bigfoot DNA study. So, but Dave Pilates said, well, it would be kind of cool to go get some Bigfoot DNA. So why don't you go in there and do the whole tape method, and get some Dogman DNA then. So of course, Dad listened to him and goes in there to that spot, and Dad says that he's in there, and it's really a creepy spot. It's around this old homestead that used to be in there, and his place, that his research area. There's a lot of creepy stuff that's happened there. Actually, one of my friends that I do my bushcraft stuff, the T-Carp channel, and then the T-Carp T-Man channel. There's a lot of history back there. Unfortunately, some folks have been murdered back there. Some folks have committed suicide back there. There's unfortunately a lot of bad things, but that's neither here nor there. Well, it might be here nor there. There's a well there, like this sunken in, dug in well, and he's passing by it, and he said that this Dogman creature literally jumps up on this tree, like grabs it and is just kind of up on this tree, and Dad's freaking out, but he says like he couldn't move, he all this. And poor Dad, back in the day, Dad didn't have a whole lot of money, and he had this pistol. And Mike, are you a gun guy, or Brooks, are you a gun gal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Dad had the big old High Point 45, and it's a brick. It's a stinking brick. So and Dad's old school. I told him all the time, you need to carry one in the chamber, but at this time he wasn't. So Dad takes this High Point 45, cocks it, and of course it makes ka-chink. It's huge, makes this massive ka-chink. He said that Dogman is right there and just stands and just looks at him. And he said, Travis, those were the coldest, blackest eyes he'd ever seen. Coldest, blackest eyes. Like he said, it was nothing in it. And he said, scared him to death. He went through those processes of what happens when, if this thing jumps down, where do I shoot it? Where do I, what's going on? And he finally got the urge to back out and all that, and went out. And till that day, Dad never went into that spot without me or someone else there. It scared him that bad. So, and that was his encounter with a Dogman. So I can absolutely buy, why that gentleman, what that gentleman saw, that makes sense. And I can see why people don't want to talk about it. They just don't want people to think they're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what you said just gave me chills.
Yeah.
Because I went with my boys, and this happened on film. We wasn't even Bigfoot hunting or nothing. I took the boys down to the lake because the lake had dried up, and the lake sits over what used to be an old city. And we go down there and find neat little things, And it was really dry that year, super dry, and the lake was really far down. And I took them walking out across it, and we was in the open, and there's a tree line that parallels it. And I had her little boy with me, my nephew and my son. And her little boy goes, Mike, look, there's a bunch of coyotes over there. And I looked over, and there was a pack of coyotes over by the tree line. And I said, they're not going to hurt you, And I had my pistol on me, but usually coyotes, they do their thing, take off. So we're walking. And my little boy grabs me by the arm, and he's like, Dad, 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 Dad. And I look, and these things are on their legs, upright walking. And the part that got me what you just said, the one jumps up in the tree and starts shaking the tree. Mm. And we turned around, and you see all this on the film. The kids are scared to death, and they're like, Dad, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. I'm like, no, just get to the truck.
Right.
So we go across the lake, and I had a 45 on my side. I think I had I can't remember what I was carrying. I think it was a Rock Island. And
Rock Island, 1911, yeah.
Yep. And I was like, man, if they charge us, I'm not sure how many I could get before they, got to us. 'Cause I'm limited in range with my pistol. But they never did come to us. They stayed at the tree line. but they were howling and shaking the trees. I mean, these are locust trees. They were shaking the trees, and it was just like, wow.
That's
and
wild.
Ugh.
Whatever these, I believe they're Nephilim. I believe the Dogman are Nephilim. I believe the Bigfoot are Nephilim. Mm-hmm. Whatever these, whatever realm they enjoy, I do believe firearms affect them. They are genuinely scared of it. I do believe that. One of the guys I really like listening to, they run a thing. It's like Health Masters, and they talk about it too. They talk about Nephilim and Genesis 6 and all that. And that's, in my opinion, and not to be political, that's why the powers that be do not want you to have guns, is because it can affect them, and these angelic powers, guns affect them. I genuinely believe that.
I believe that because whenever I done the Girl Scout murder case I took it on here in Oklahoma, and it turned out being that there was what they believed a Gugwe involved, and I tried to speak to the shaman. It's still very native up in that area, still practiced very heavily. And I wanted to talk to him. And they, of course, had to have meeting after meeting before they'd ever talk to me. And finally, they decided to talk to me. And I was sitting there, and it's, I bring up Dogman, and they laugh. And, of course, I'm like, that's what we call them. He said, that's what the white men call them. He said, they're not Dogman. And I said, okay, what are they? He said, they're all the same. He said, there's no Dogman, there's no Sasquatch. And I said, so how are they the same? He said, does a rat terrier look like a Rottweiler? I said, no. He said, they're different colors, they're different sizes. Some are born with no tails. Some dogs have long snouts, some have short snouts. Some have long ears, some's got short ears. He goes, but they're all dogs, aren't they? So I was like, wow. Never thought of it that way.
I never thought of it that way either. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
It really blew me away at that moment, because he said, just because you see something that doesn't look like what everybody else has seen doesn't mean that it's not the same thing. Mm-hmm. And he said, we traded with them. We spoke to them. He said, they stole our women, ate our children. I mean, he went into all that, and he said, they will try to be your friend. And when they make friends with you, he said, then they will try to eat you.
Why do you think, Mike and Brooks, I want your opinion. Why do you think cannibalism is something that seems to just be so prevalent when we start getting deep into this stuff? To me, I always hear that. It's like they'll befriend you. They'll lie to you. They will tell you all these things like, oh, we're your spirit brothers, or we're your from the stars, or whatnot. And then they'll start eating people. Why is that?
My opinion, okay, the Bible talks about the beast of the earth and the beasts, plural. Mm-hmm. I think these are the beasts. And I think, my opinion, that during tribulations, then that's when everybody's going to see these things. These things are going to come out, and they're supposed to devour people.
That makes sense. What about you, Mike? What do you think?
I think they're living up to their word, kill, steal, and destroy.
Yeah,
we know he's the great, he is the great deceiver. They are, his children, the bloodline, the lineage. They hate everything that we are. There's a saying that, the worst thing that ever happened to Satan was the creation of us, because we was a slap directly in his face. Mm-hmm. We have forgiveness. We have eternity if we accept our Savior. They don't have a chance. Mm-hmm. So why would they even, want to be our friend? Because we're everything that they can't be. That's
right. We're everything that they can't be.
They're an abomination. Yeah,
they are, and I believe that. I think that, and I think that a lot of people will maybe tune this out and not, and like I said, not understand that may have had or want Bigfoot to be the keeper of the woods, or just a hairy ape, or whatnot. David Pilates had a really good presentation at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference, and he talked about, if Bigfoot were or Gigantopithecus.
Right.
If that were that, you don't have any of those fossil records of that. You don't have anything proving that. And and again, and he leans more, I think he leans more toward the, Bigfoot is a human species of some sort. And then, Dad kind of helped maybe push him into the Nephilim thing. And I do think that's what he thinks. But I think that either way you go about it, these are a people of some sorts. These are, and they don't, and like you said, Brooks, they just don't follow the rules that we do. And they come to kill, steal, and destroy. They do that. Now, we don't, just because they don't follow our rules does not mean that they don't follow rules at all. So an example is these jokers don't want to be filmed. They don't want to be filmed. I don't know why they don't want to be filmed, but it's extremely difficult to get them on film. And one of the cool things, my dog's about to knock over my camera. Buddy, come on. One of the things that Dad did that I thought was, sometimes it's like, Dad, that's pretty daggum smart, was that back trail camera. And Tony Merkel called me. If you guys don't know who Tony Merkel is, he runs the confessionals. Me and him were talking the other day, and he basically dubs that method the Carpenter method. And I was like, I appreciate that, man. But basically putting a camera on your shoulder and pointing it back behind you. Now, do we think they fully understand what cameras are to a certain degree? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But he got a ton of footage with that. He got a ton, like his best footage is looking behind him. That white Bigfoot.
If you don't say that was incredible.
If you don't believe in Bigfoot, by gosh, if you think that, we walked up to, 6 miles up to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and I hid in the bushes and just slowly peeked out, so that would, that would be, that didn't happen. So,
that piece of footage was incredible.
Yeah. And the naysayers, they're gonna try to find anything they can to discredit what doesn't follow their narrative. Another thing that blows my mind, and I don't understand this, is, and I've been working on this a long time, a lot of people say that they have laws that they can't pass. But it seems they do, because I know we do have children that go missing. We do have children that are found alive. We have children that are found deceased, and we have children that are never found.
And people.
So, right. So what is the difference? What makes one child left alive, one child found deceased, one child never found? What causes that? What is the difference?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew that why and laws and stuff like that, but we just, unfortunately, we don't. And it breaks my heart for those that have had the deceased and have the lost and all that, and then you have those stories where they're found. But it's weird. I don't know, and it breaks my heart to even think about that those things. But I don't have a good answer for you, Mike. I just don't. I'm sorry.
It's crazy because you would think that if it was a law that they couldn't pass, then they wouldn't be able to do it at all. And then it makes me wonder, okay, are they?
But I think they take if that opportunity's there, and they think they can get away with it, I think they do it.
Yeah.
That's what I was working on. Are they opportunistic? Is that child like in a vulnerable position to where the parent can be blamed for not watching the child, or the child could have fell off the bridge and killed himself? Is it by chance they say, well, we could get away with this? And are some of the children found alive because search and rescue gets there faster than what they think they can, and they know that if they don't leave a child, the search is going to continue. And if they leave the child, they find the child, the search is over.
Absolutely. That's a good way too. Dad always said that they, they're just like us. They have different tastes, they have different moods, they have different thoughts. So just like you said, one could take one and get back to the tribe, and they're like, "What in the heck are you doing? Drop it, drop this thing off, get it away from us." That one of the, we know they argue. One of the recordings that Dad and Dave Pilates had, do you remember that, where it sounded like the Bigfoot were yelling at each other, the two Bigfoot were yelling at each other? So you have two Bigfoots speaking or yelling at each other loud enough to obviously where it was on camera and everyone could hear it. And when it was taken to a language expert, he was like, you have two arguing basically. And who knows what they were arguing about? We can that's up for debate, but we do know that they argue, they have different thoughts and opinions, and that may be it, is like, one takes one and everybody agrees that they take it, or it might just be a lone Bigfoot, or, he takes it back to the group and they're like, oh, get this away. Who knows? So they're just like us. And one of Dad's things that he always talked about that found very interesting too was, he said that they're all very conceited. They all like themselves, like it's all about them, and even the arguing with themselves. So I thought that was a very interesting insight. And Mike, you said it. They come to kill, steal, and destroy. Why would they care about anything else other than them? Why would they care about anybody else other than their group? Other than their group is in the same situation they're in. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they was arguing. One was saying take you, and the other one was saying it's a bad idea.
Absolutely.
That's a scary argument.
Could be. So I want to do a quick shameless plug. I do run like I said before, I do run a bushcrafting outdoor channel. It's just called T-Carp. Please follow. I'm so close to that magic number with the Google overlords. They might like me and I might get monetized. We'll see. So I would certainly appreciate it if you guys would do that.
You'll definitely make it. I'm sure our viewers will go right over. They usually do. They usually are real good.
So I sure do appreciate it. Have you, speaking of the bushcraft stuff, do you remember, and forgive me, I ramble a little bit, so you can cut me off at any time.
Oh, no, you're fine.
You remember Les Stroud's Survivor Man Bigfoot? Do you remember that episode?
Yeah.
So do you remember that what came out and a few years later when Les Stroud said that he got mind spoken to? Did you guys ever check that out or hear that? So even mainstream folks have these issues or things that they can't explain if they're 100% truthful. 100% truthful, there's things that they can't explain in the supernatural realm that, when you start really digging into this stuff, and that's the scary part of it.
Yeah, I agree.
And even the natives here said that they fear the blade.
So there still is so that just again leads into that Nephilim thing is there's a spirituality aspect, but there still is a physical aspect to it. When I do it, go ahead, Brooks. Sorry.
Oh no, that was Mike.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was just, it's weird because the shaman told me. I asked him a lot of questions. I said, so is there a law that they can't leave the wood line? Because, a lot of these Bigfoot people say, oh, there's a law. They can't leave the wood line. And the shaman laughed. And he said, no, they can go anywhere they want to. He said, the reason they don't leave the wood line is because whenever white men arrived, white men had guns. And the Bigfoot found out that if they were in the open, they could be killed easily by the white man's guns. But in the trees, they had the advantage. So they stayed to the woods. He said, that's why we called them the shy people.
God, that makes a lot of sense. And probably, if I know a lot of people, if they saw a Bigfoot out in the open, they would shoot it to this day. You know, and it's wild. Oh, I have a story for you. So another time, it's just speaking of the shooting and all that, there was a hunter one time, and this was told to me. This wasn't even told to Dad. This was told to me about this. Is this guy was out hunting and here in East Tennessee, and he saw one. And he's out hunting. He's got his gun, and he was asked by his buddy. You know, it's like, well, if you saw this thing, why didn't you shoot it? He's right there. You know what his words were? I didn't know if it was human or not.
Right.
And that's kind of the thing. Is like you start hearing it. Like, it's okay. It's one thing to pull the trigger on an animal. It is, and I love animals. You know, I'm an animal lover, and I hunt. And I kill squirrels, I kill deer, and it's an emotional thing. And anybody that actually hunts admits that it is an emotional thing. And
they have that human aspect to them.
Mm-hmm. And that's animals. But if we're talking about killing a Bigfoot, that we believe, I believe is a human line. Man, that's something different. Something different to kill a human. So.
Yeah.
So when I was young, you'll probably enjoy this one. This is what changed my whole thought process. I knew that my mom, and she had, there was 8 brothers and sisters, and they lived in the woods pretty much at my granny's. And my grandpa was a professional logger, so he was gone all week, and it was my granny and the kids. And these things have been coming up there. This is like the 1950s, and it had been bothering them and everything. And it had done it all that time up until I was about 20. My granny then had a stroke, and the girls were taking turns staying, 3 nights apiece with her and keeping her at home. And this thing just kept on and on and on. It was bothering my mom, bothering the sisters that were staying. It was beating on the house. It was making its noises, making its screams, I got irritated because Granny was sick. So me and my cousin decided we're going to kill it. So my house was about a half a mile from my granny's house. So I didn't go with my mom that night like I normally would. I would normally go stay with her overnights when she'd stay there. I didn't go. I made it look like I didn't go. She was alone. We snuck down in the dark. And before you got to my granny's house, there was some old oil tanks that set up on the hill. So we climbed up on those, which gave us a really good view of her house. All I had was a 410 single shot. My cousin had a 22. So we're sitting up there, and we see it in the backyard. You can see this upright, big person walking, and we're like, there it is. So we take off toward it. And as we're cutting across the pasture toward the back of this house, it goes off toward down into the hog pasture where they used to have hogs. And it goes into the old dried up pond, which it was now full of cattails. So we follow it into the cattails, and you can hear it moving in there. And the next thing I know, my grandpa had a piece of tin over the part of the pond that where the water would come up, it would kind of like drain out. So he had a piece of tin over it so he could walk over it. This thing steps on that tin because I heard the tin crunch, and we turned, and it was like right there. Now, it wasn't nothing huge. It was probably 5 foot, something like that. It wasn't nothing huge. I shot it point blank. My cousin emptied his little 22 semi-automatic on it, and it fell. It fell just like any other animal. I mean, just straight down on the tin, boom. I said, damn, we killed it. So I jacked the bullet out, throw another 410 bullet in, rack it in there. He's trying to put his 22 bullets in. It jumps up, and it runs maybe 50 yards up behind the chicken house. We turn our lights on. We have these old mag lights, and we turn our mag lights on, and there's this dark, and you're a hunter, so you'll know, this arterial-looking blood, the dark purple.
Yeah, the dark one. It ain't the red one. It's dark. Yeah,
right. It's the one where you got it.
You got it. Yeah,
and it's thick, and it goes all the way up behind the chicken house. Well, my mom and them heard the gunshots in the house. They run outside. They point the cars toward the chicken house. They got their headlights on. They call us up there. They're like, get your ass up here, So we get up there, and this thing, everybody hears it. It's behind the chicken house, and it's growling. And it's like it's running big nails down the back of that tin. So they call my dad and they call my uncle. My uncle was in Vietnam and he was one of the kids that lived there. They fly down there and they're shining the old spotlight you plugged in the cigarette lighter, the stainless steel one out there. And it takes off running from behind the chicken house down toward the other bigger pond. And it's got something over its back. Well, later on, my uncle got to thinking about it. And he said, your mom probably saved your all's ass that night. He said, because you probably injured a juvenile. It ran to its mom. And if y'all would have went behind that chicken house that night, he said that probably would have been the end of you all.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because if you said it was 4 or 5 foot, that's a small one. That definitely was a juvenile. Your dad. Thinking about that, something over respect. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ooh.
But the blood.
Yep.
I knew then, hey, these things bleed.
Yeah, they're physical. They're physical. Mm-hmm. And it would make sense that it would make sense that it was a juvenile, because most adults are not going to be easily seen like that. They're not going to put themselves out in the open like that. Wow, that is a wild story, but it makes it makes a lot of sense. It matches a lot of what you hear and all that. So, but it's funny that you said that about the blood, because if you gut shot a deer, you're going to have this really bright red, pinkish blood. But an arterial blood, man, that stuff's purple, and it's all the oxygen in it. So,
right.
But, that's wild, man. That's really wild.
Did your dad ever hear any of them speak? Did he ever hear them speak?
Other than the yell that happened with Dave Pilates, that he said that they did try to mind speak him, and he refused. He would refuse to mind speak. So I think when he figured out kind of what they were, the Nephilim part, he started rebuking them, because I don't know if you guys knew this. I know he had said it on a few times, but there were some really weird things started happening at his house. There was orbs, and they would start taking the dog food, and then there was peeping toms, quote unquote, in the neighborhood. A wild thing is when I was at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot conference, one of the neighbors came by, and she's like, "Hey, I didn't know your dad lived here. I remember when we had this issue in the neighborhood, Right. And it was wild, and it's like, if I knew that was your dad and your dad lived here, I would have said hi. But it's not just these harebrained stories that people make up or dad made up. These things actually happened, and that's kind of the thing too. Is and like I said, I'm kind of rambling, but that's the thing too. Is you kind of not being dove or into this realm, into the Bigfoot world, but still being a part of it in this, hey, this is dad. This is just what dad talks about. This is just what we are. And then it's like, oh, dad's having these issues. These really did happen. It's not just these stories that dad told. It's kind of a double and triple confirmation. I thought it was kind of cool. But to answer your question, no, they didn't ever speak to him.
But he did have them leave stuff in the driveway too.
Yes. So the big thing that they would leave, and I actually have all of them. They left the blue jay feathers by his truck. So what would happen is, dad had this. It's pretty recognizable. This big blue Silverado. It's a 2003 Chevrolet Silverado. And that was dad's baby. He loved that truck, and drove it literally till the wheels fell off. And there was a blue jay there would always be a blue jay feather by that thing. He's like, all right, well, So he moved it, and it wasn't just anything like just multiple blue jay feathers. It was one. And then he moved, and then he's like, and it happened 1 or 2 times in a row, and he moved the truck, and it happened again. Same, Then he moved it, and Dad has a big driveway. It's actually a very large driveway. So Dad would move the truck in multiple places around the driveway. It still happened. It happened for a while. But yeah, they would leave stuff They also left a falcon skull that I've got. They left multiple things for him before he started rebuking them.
Yeah, and I remember the handprint on the siding of the house.
Yep,
that was way up there.
So that was so Dad has red, the old-fashioned like red aluminum siding on his house, and I just got it pressure washed, but trying to sell Dad's house. But before I got it pressure washed, you could still see the handprint on the side of the thing, because there's the house, and then there's basically you had like a gutter. So a gutter right here, and you had a bird's nest sitting in that little crux of that gutter. What they were doing is they were climbing one on top of another and trying to get the eggs in that bird's nest. And you could literally see where they had just leaned up against that in that handprint there.
Right. Yeah.
See, they like to leave Sarah feathers. I didn't know nothing about your dad's feathers. I hadn't seen that, but
really, yeah.
Whenever Sarah goes with me, they leave her. What are they? Crane, crane feathers off the cranes. They'll stick them in her side of the door of the car.
So they're trying to get your attention. You're a female. They're mostly males. It's a you know what it is, Sarah. You know what they're trying to say. Oh, you do need to be careful. You know, Dad talked about be careful if you're hiking, and I know this is kind of. This is PG-13 for people, but when ladies are on their menstrual cycles, you need to be very careful going through the woods, not only for Bigfoot, but for bears and cougars and things like that. You guys put off pheromones that attract all these creatures. So
on our last boots on the ground, this was left on her side of the car. It's a stick. You can see it was sharpened, and it was stuck underneath her windshield wiper on her side of the car, and it's just an old bent stick. But I brought it home. Everybody got mad at me. They're like, leave it. But I brought it home.
Well, that has happened, and then whenever we've been out before, I made the mistake. I had a bottle of tea, and we were live, so I was talking in chat to everybody, and I just set my bottle of tea up on the hood of the truck, and we just took off walking, doing our normal investigation that we was doing. But when we came back, there was like this huge limb left on top of the car, and then there was like another pile of them left down in front of the car, and my tea bottle was laying like in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So your tea bottle was moved, put in that, and that's wild. So it wasn't just something that fell, knocked the tea over, and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The tea was moved from the hood of the Durango drive, probably 10 feet in front, and another pile of wood that wasn't there. We would have had to drive over coming in, and it was set right in the middle of the wood.
That's wild.
It was another long stick.
And they'll do that, and it's stupid stuff. It seems like, because it's like, okay, that doesn't prove anything to anybody else, but to you, it's like, well, it's right there. Like, why don't you see it? So, they'll definitely do that stuff. They'll do things to get your attention that only kind of like you'll notice, and it's like, oh, well, something's up here. I need to pay attention to this. One of the things that Dad got on film that's very like that, Sarah. Do you remember him talking about the mint that they left him very early on his journey? He was walking up. And he was batting gnats away like we all do. And he walks back, and you have a stack of rocks, which is not uncommon. Some people, but there's no one walking up the trail. And, so Dad's, it's not at a weird pitch point or anything like that. It's just the trail. And no one's walked up or back, and Dad hadn't passed anybody. Goes back, and he has that stack of rocks conveniently, and underneath it is mountain mint. Well, he goes back and researches, and mountain mint helps with the bugs. So it's like little things like that won't, to the naysayers, won't prove anything, but to folks that are paying attention, it's like, oh, yep, absolutely, that makes sense.
That's right.
And on the EVPs we get, they call her Mama.
Ooh.
Every time I have her with me, we always get Mama.
There was one time I wasn't with him at like the beginning, and I actually went down to meet up with him. And whenever we were walking, we had been walking maybe a good 15 minutes, and one of them said, "She's here."
Yeah.
Because before this, he had been, I guess, saying on the video, "Where's Sarah?" And then they'd call Mama, and then I wasn't there. And then whenever I showed up, they started saying, "She's here," and then calling out Mama.
That's wild.
There was one night she saw something. I couldn't see it. She saw a lady, she said, was standing out in the woods, and I couldn't see her. And I said, I don't see her. And she kept saying, she's right there. And I looked, and I was like, I don't see her. So I took the IR camera off and handed it to her. I said, if you see her, take a picture of her. Because I couldn't see her. And she took the picture, and lo and behold, when we got home, I pulled it up, and there was a woman in like a dress, I guess, what she was wearing. Was that a
ripped up white dress?
But I couldn't see her. I couldn't see her.
That's wild. I think when it comes to that, you know, and we had talked about before the show, you know, the EVPs and the infrared stuff. I think that whatever these creatures are, they enjoy that different spectrum of light and sound that necessarily we can't hear. So a good example for folks that are just kind of new to this is, you know how dogs can hear a dog whistle? They can hear a frequency that we can't. Sometimes the cameras can pick up these frequencies that necessarily we can't. It's just a part of the spectrum. It's just not available to us. Same thing with infrared, infrablue, violet, etc. It's part of it. It's part of the light spectrum we just can't pick up. That's where our, you know, how our night vision cameras work and all that. It's just a spectrum that we can't see, and black or nothingness. But these cameras, they pick up things that are there. And I think that these spiritual things are obviously in that red, in that infrared spectrum, or blue, or probably even who knows, you know, what part of the spectrum they can go to.
Right.
So
I got a
that's
theory.
wild.
I'll run it past you and see what you think. Since you're talking about the sound waves, this is a theory that I came up with. You know, when we're out later on, the audio you'll hear it in the audio when you play it back, and you can't hear it actually when you're there. So one of my theories was believing that these are from the Nephilim, and in the Bible, God said that, you know, Lucifer had musical instruments in him, and if he was an angel, and these fallen angels, these watchers, and they're all the same, and they say they have pretty much the same attributes. What if the musical instruments inside of Satan wasn't instruments? What if it was a metaphorically for they had different vocal cords than us? And
absolutely.
They're able to use those vocal cords, these musical instruments, and they can go higher and lower than what we can hear. And that is part of how they're able to communicate without us being able to hear them.
Absolutely. I think that tracks. Absolutely, it does. What is it talks about Satan, and when he's talking about the king of Tyre, you know, talking to the king of Tyre, and he's talking about Satan, the power behind it, and he talks about Satan's pipes and all that. I believe he's talking about the vocal cords, and how they were designed, and that absolutely tracks. Maybe that's how they can speak. They can do Mindspeak too. Is they hit something inside. They know how to hit something inside of our brains where we can hear it. You know, that may, you know, they can almost direct that sound to us and make us hear it in our heads.
Echolocate.
You know? Absolutely. Because I don't believe that, because I don't believe they can actually hear your thoughts. I don't believe they can ever do that. I don't believe Satan can hear your thoughts, and I don't think they can read minds. But, you know, everyone argues, okay, well then how can they mind speak? I think you just kind of nailed it there, Mike. Is using that higher frequency and then directing it towards you.
Right.
And I agree with you on the mind, because God says that, you know, they can't read our mind.
Exactly. So that I don't believe they can read your mind or your thoughts or anything like that. They can mind speak you, And I think they can talk, like I said, talk to you and try to implant thoughts, but I don't think they can ever read your mind. Only the Lord knows the heart.
That's right.
That's what I believe too. And I got to thinking about that, and I was like, man, if what he was talking about, if these pipes, these instruments, if they were the vocal cords, imagine the things that you can do. I mean, the military uses noise right now to cause people to be dizzy, disoriented. It causes people not to be able to focus, to get sick. And think if they're angelic, theirs is going to be a lot more advanced than what we're even able to do.
Absolutely, and I'm right there with you. Like who knows what they can do? Who knows what? Like you said, they can do with light or sound or frequencies and all that stuff. That gets into the fun Tesla stuff and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I like that. And who knows? But I'm right there with you, Mike. I'm right there with you. Dad. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I used to never. Me and Brooks used to laugh about this, but I had never seen lights in the sky like all these people, talked about aliens and UFOs and all that. I had never experienced that until 2 years ago. Out here where we live, it'd be the northeast and northwest, there's these lights, and they come down, and they move ways that no aircraft that I know of could move, and they chase each other like they're playing tag. They'll fade in and out of brightness, and then you can watch them go down to the ground, and they'll be down for a while, and then they'll just shoot straight up out of sight, and then they're gone for the night.
Who knows? Who knows if it's the angels in the heavenly realms fighting, having wars? I mean,
absolutely.
Who knows? Like Chuck Missler. I'm a big Chuck Missler guy.
Oh yeah, I love Chuck Missler. Yes.
Chuck Missler. Always said, who are we to say how angels can move around and what vehicles that they use?
Exactly.
Who knows what it is? But we do know that there's wars going on, and all that. So one of my theories is that's probably what, when you see those lights that you can't explain and whatnot, you're probably seeing angelic battles of some sort. So
that's right.
that's my theory on it. Doesn't mean it's right, but that's my theory.
I believe that too. Yeah, for sure.
So has any of these creatures followed you home since your dad done that work?
That's a great question. And one of the big things about us and what I've had to come to grips with and what I've had to make the decision is I'm not going to be doing research because of that. My wife is an amazing woman of God. When Dad started this back in 2008-9, me and my wife had just started dating. And then we started getting to 2010-11 and it started getting big. Dad got called by, got emails, but, from the Finding Bigfoot stuff. And it started to kind of take off and whatnot. And my wife at that point had just so much insight. And she's like, I don't think these things need to be messed with. I just don't. And we, it's come to the point where, we all know they're Nephilim and we've prayed over our house. We have, and this may be too spiritual for some people. I'm sorry. We've prayed over our house.
Channel.
We've done the oil over the bed, the post. We've
right here.
I have gone to the four corners of my property and I've prayed them away. And I've prayed them away in the woods before. I've said I have had times where I feel that absolute dread. And if you've been there and Mike, you do that stuff, that absolute dread feeling. I've yelled at them to get I may be some crazy dude yelling in the woods, but I'm yelling at them to get away from me. Get away from me. I know you're there. Get away from me. I don't want to see you. I don't want you around me. And that is why I don't do any research. I will show research. I will talk. I will go over notes. I'll go hunting. I'll go bushcrafting. I'll do all that. but I'm not going to go looking for them. I'm not giving them that permission because, you guys saw in the thing, I've got 2 little girls. I've got a wife to take care of.
That's right.
I can't be fooling around. I can't be fooling around with this stuff, if that means. I can't be opening doors that I don't know I'm opening. So no, they haven't followed me home. They followed Dad home, and that was a really big thing. He had dark figures in his room, water footprints that he talked about. A lot of weird stuff. And then when Dad prayed over the house and did the same thing, we pray over the 4 corners. It gives a bubble of protection. Doesn't keep them away 100%, as in doesn't keep them from looking into the bubble. Keeps kind of a hedge.
Keeps them at bay.
It keeps them at bay. So they can still fiddle with a few things, and they can always be there. But I just think that thank God that I never pursued them and allowed them to pursue me, if that makes sense. We put a stop to that fairly early. So,
well, it was your dad that said, you go looking for them. That basically gives them permission to come look for you.
That's right. It gives that connection. Yeah. It gives them that okay. It's again, I don't know the spiritual rules. There's rules that we just don't understand. But they know them. Yeah. So they know them, and
entertaining an angel unknowingly. It doesn't say it couldn't be a fallen angel.
Yeah, there you go, Mike. Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah.
What are you entertaining? Because we're supposed to test those spirits, right, to find out what they are. And if you go looking for them, they're the masters of deception. I mean, I the other night you talked about the dread. It happened to me the other night when you talk about that. I went to go do an investigation, and usually I'm not afraid. That night, before I ever got out of the car door, I didn't want to. I had that feeling that, man, I wasn't supposed to be there. And I got out, and I was looking over my shoulder. I couldn't get comfortable. And I was walking, and I just had this feeling that whatever this was, it was across the creek standing on just a feeling. And I told everybody on the live, I was like, I'm going to turn this light on super high, and you watch and see if you see something. As soon as I turned that thing on live, man, that thing screamed at me from over there. I mean, it was a terrible scream. And I left that night. But it was one of those screams that, I've hunted all my life, and I knew that wasn't an animal.
Yeah, you know when a doe yelps or a coyote does its thing. Yeah. You know that scream, and it's a scary scream, or like a fox. But there's a difference that you just know it.
It has that human tone.
Yes, it had and it's hard to describe if you've never been out there. But if you've heard it, you've heard it. It's that deeper. You can tell there's a longer, tone to it. It's wild. Yeah, I get it. Trust me.
And you said your dad had water in his floor from the
footsteps? Yes. So Dad. So yeah, exactly. The water. Thank you, Miss Brooks. The water footprints. So. So there was footprints, I think, either leading from the kitchen, basically, and just ending at the back door. So let's say you've got this kitchen, so it would be from like the refrigerator walking all the way to the back door here, and then just ending, then just ending at the door, like it walked right through it. So that was kind of interesting to hear. I never saw it, but Dad was adamant about it. But he said it was weird. It was like kids' footprints. So that was interesting. It reminds
me of what Pilatus said too. Water is part of it.
Yeah. You just said the thing. The water was part of it. Do you remember? Dave Pilatus will come out with it hopefully here soon. You remember Dad's portal that he talked about?
Yes.
So hopefully. Hopefully the Dave Pilates will be able to come out with that video and whatnot. There's pictures in my dad's book, and you can still get dad's book on Amazon. I have nothing to do with that. It's all like, I think, Amazon publishing. So I think you could still buy them. I'm not sure. I'm not making anything from that, but no worries there. That's all. That goes all to the estate. So that's Miranda and all that. But in those books, there's pictures of that portal, and by that portal, there's a rock face and there's a creek. And it's like, what is this water? Like you said, what does water have to do with it? What do rock faces have to do with it? Because I've always had my dread near rock faces, near big shears of rocks. So I don't know. What do you guys think of that? You ever heard of that before, the rock faces?
Well, it depends on what I think. I heard granite draws it energy, whether the rocks were granite. And the water, they always say water has the energy too. So combined with the rock and the water, could open one.
And you're right too, Brooks, because my buddy that works for Verdigris Valley Electric Company, they had a store over here that kept blowing their fuses, and they was blowing transformers, and they didn't understand what was going on. There was way too much power coming down the lines, but they had everything how it should be. They finally ended up having to hire a subcontractor to come in, and what they found out was the ground out here where we live is limestone and granite, and it's a perfect conductor of electricity. And that whole ground out there had huge amounts of stored energy, and they had to go in and put special things in order for this store and all their campers and stuff they allow out there not to just blow everything up in them. So if these creatures are attracted to that, there's your energy. I mean,
that would make sense because daggum Smoky Mountains is all granite and limestone anyway.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense.
One thing when you said about blessing your house, I want to tell you my story.
Yeah.
Okay. About, I guess, my last fire I had in the fireplace. I live in Ruidoso, New Mexico, in the mountains. I moved here, it'll be 2 years ago in November. When I first came, I blessed my house. You know, I anointed it with oil, blessed my house. So about March, when I had my last fire in the fireplace, I took a video of it for Mike, for, you know, some of his stories to play while he's reading stories. Well, one of our viewers on the last frame of that video, he caught an angel. There's an angel in that fireplace. You can see its wings, you can see its face, its hair, its hands holding a sword in that fireplace. Okay, well, June, what was it, 17th, 19th, Ruidoso had a major forest fire. And the whole village here, we had to be evacuated. I was evacuated 11 days. And I mean, it was catastrophic. It made national news. And I firmly believe that angel in that fireplace was what saved my home, because that fire missed me by one house next door, and the house behind me is okay, and on the other side is okay, but across the street from both of these houses, it's gone. It's all gone.
Oh my goodness! I believe it.
She also had a gray in her house.
That was about 30 something years ago when I lived in Texas. I'm originally from the Texas Panhandle, and we'd lived out in the country. Yeah.
And you had that gray, and
I had that gray, and that's when I really started digging into it. I said, Lord, tell me what this thing is, because it scared me. It scared me bad. And God led me to L.A. Marzulli.
Yes, yes. I'm a big L.A.
Yes.
Marzulli fan, and
Yes.
and L.A. was so kind to my dad.
Yes.
And that I love it. It's kind of something that happened with that. My dad and my mom got divorced.
Mhm.
When I was 9 or 10. I want to tell a quick thing, and I'm getting to the gray. And mom and dad had a good enough relationship that mom was there holding dad's hand when he passed. So mom, the Lord works in mysterious ways that way. But anyway, I say all that to say, mom talked about dad, before he figured out that these things were Nephilim and whatnot. Dad would have these nightmares about those two little Bigfoot that came and pressed their noses against the glass of Mama and Papa's house. Do you remember that story?
Yes, I do.
So mom even said that dad would have nightmares about it. And this is my mom, who's divorced from my dad. She doesn't care one bit about Bigfoot. So why would she, if this was just a contrived story, why would she help with the contrive, and all that? And it's funny to me to think that's like, it's almost like when it comes to this realm, Brooks and Mike and Sarah, it's almost like you're chosen into it. It's like, okay, they're going to pick you out type of thing. And they're going to mess with you. And it's like, well, I saw something that doesn't make sense. What is that? And then it's like, and then it's funny how the Lord works it. The Lord works it to say, hey, I got you. I'm here. This is what this is. And all that stuff. It's
exactly. I just turned 63. And when I moved here, I've been with Mike and Sarah about a year. Well, a little over a year. Never in my wildest dreams would I be here. And this is all the things that I had learned about, taught myself, by watching your dad, Dave Politis, and of course, I'm a big fan, of Dave and Steve Ishtal, L.A. Marzulli, Tim Alberino, Tom Horn, Steve Quell. I'm big fans of all of them. And never in a million years would I believe that God would have led me here.
It's definitely funny how it works. He works in mysterious ways, and sometimes I think he definitely has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah, because she said the gray put its hands on her bed and laid it, and just stared at her.
Yeah, it just looked at me. Yeah. I thought it was my daughter. My daughter was about 3 at the time, and we lived in a mobile home, and she would not sleep in her room. I mean, up until she was 12 years old, till I moved out of that house, she slept on the couch. She just refused to sleep in that bedroom. But I thought it was her. I saw her, I was looking down the house, saw her thinking it was her, running around, and came up, and it just did this on my bed and was looking at me. I mean, it was this far from my face. And I thought,
yeah,
that's not her. Yeah.
That would give me that would freak me out. I'd probably scream like a little girl. If I saw that. But man, that's wild. But
maybe the things are in these woods and these places where we go search, and maybe these places are the dry places.
Maybe. I have a theory, and I talked to Tony Merkel about this. We spent several hours here just hanging out, and he's because he lives very close to me, and man, I was, Dad died, I was in shambles. I was not good. Yes, I put on a happy face for everybody, and I was a flipping wreck. But me and him were talking, and I said, well, I was talking about what do I do with all this, and because I'd been with Dad, but I hadn't done any of this. That was Dad's thing. That's Dad's gig. And, I took it to him. I was like, what do I do with this, man? Like, what do I do with this channel? What do I do with all this research? Because I can't just let it die. I can't let, I can't do that. And I took it to some of my friends, and I think I just posted like a video on his channel and said this, and 300 to 400 comments saying, please continue, please continue, please continue. And it's like, what do you say to that? You can't just say, screw y'all, no, I feel like there's still work to be done to talk about it. I feel like there's work to be done when it comes to just making people aware that if you've had a experience that you cannot explain, you're not crazy, number one. It did happen. And let's face it together. And here's what happened. Here's what it is.
Right.
And then when you figure that out, your brain can process, and your body can process what happened and kind of just work through it and go together. And I think, and you can get over that trauma and PTSD and go back out in the woods and have a good time.
Right.
But
I
wrestle
not against flesh and blood, right?
Yep. Absolutely. We're wrestling all against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers in all this world. And it's poof. But I do think they're gathering outside of cities as a staging, in my opinion, for who knows what. And me and Tony Merkel, say all that to say, me and Tony Merkel kind of agree on that. It's like they're staging outside of cities and whatnot and gathering. Who knows for what? But
my opinion, tribulations.
Yep. And here's the thing, that the devil has to have his minions in place at all times, because he doesn't know when it's going to kick off. See, and we want God to tell us when these things are going to happen, but you have to understand we're in a war. So the Lord cannot necessarily tell us, because he'd be telling the enemy too. So he has to keep things a secret. It's all war secrets.
Yeah. Well, even Jesus doesn't know.
That yep. Even no man knows, not even the Son, only the Father.
That's
make
right.
that so, and that's hard. That makes that make sense sometimes. So
that's why I wondered earlier if they had followed you, because your dad your dad to me is a legacy, and he to me he was the first one to find the truth, and that they know who who he is, they know who you are. You have to be a threat to them, because they know that you have that knowledge. It's just.
That is something that we have been dealing in my family for a while. We have had this discussion. I have my own attacks and my own demons in certain ways that the devil messes with me. And even my wife said this. She's like, there must be something God has planned for you, for the enemy to hurt you so bad. And there's things I don't want to necessarily talk about on camera, but the devil knows how to get me. And by God, he's come close. He's come close. And thank Jesus for my Savior that has saved me from He saved me from myself. Let me tell you that.
Yes.
And I believe that I'm not saying I'm anything special. Let me tell you that first and foremost. I am nothing special. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't want this, but I can't ignore it. The Lord's given this to me. My dad's given this to me, and the Lord's given this to me. I have to be responsible for this. I'm responsible for the gift I've been given. And I do believe it's a gift.
Yeah.
So I have to take care of the people that I've been given, this gift I've been given with it. So that's what I'm trying to do. And definitely I've been attacked, just not necessarily in the paranormal realm, but definitely in some spiritual battles. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So did the orbs that your dad seen, were they just the round ball orbs. Is that what?
That's what he had got on camera, was the round ones. I've never seen the orbs. I'm not super familiar with the orbs, but he said he saw the larger and the smaller round ones. Yes, never the fuzzy ones or anything like that.
Basically what we see.
Yeah, because what we're seeing, and it did not start happening. I know the exact date, October 4th of 2023. I had never experienced an orb in my life, and we went out on a live that night. And I got out of the vehicle. She was filming through the front windshield. I got out and I walked in front of the car where the headlights were on. I could hear something walking in the woods. It sounded bipedal. It was crunching the stuff. It was enough that I pulled my weapon. While I'm standing out there, I feel like I'm fixing to see something at any time, but there's nothing there. And it's like, how is it so close, but I can't see it? You know? And so I go back to the car and we review footage. I think she was actually seeing it on the phone.
Yep.
There was these black ball deals. I don't know what they were, but they would like come up out of the ground and they would look like they would fall from the sky kind of, and they would run like around my feet. They never touched me, but they would run around my feet and then they would go out into the grass and up on the little hills, and they would come back, and then one of them went out and it got really big, like a huge something. And then it goes back down and then it comes back up. They never touched me. And that was the first time I'd ever dealt with anything. I called Brooks and everybody at like 3 a.m. because I was reviewing. I was like, you got to see this. Yeah. And it almost, well, I haven't been back there. I have not been back to that spot.
That wasn't
get it.
Right, or that was the same place that I saw the lady.
Yeah, that was the same night, same place she saw the lady. And I have not been back to that location. I haven't been back.
I don't necessarily know what orbs are like in this realm. Like, what do you think the orbs are? Like what's your, I guess, explanation for it, or what, or whatnot?
If I don't know, I would think a demon, disembodied something maybe, or
right, where it doesn't have necessarily physical locality.
Yeah, because this thing it changed the whole time. It was never the same.
Well, let's look at biblically. Okay, so if it is that, we know that demons, which are the disembodied spirits of Nephilim, that's what we know that demons are from the book of Enoch. That's what that describes that as. So let's look at what, Jesus and demons. So there's a bunch of demons in this man that even call themselves legion. There were so many. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what did they do when Jesus came up? They said, have you come to torment us before it's our time? So they know there's a time when the Lord's going to set them and get rid of them, but it wasn't the time yet. So they know it's all about this timing thing. Then they asked if they could be sent. If they were going to be sent out of the man, can they be sent in the pigs? And here's the weird part is Jesus agrees.
Right.
Jesus said, okay, and did it. That's the weird part to me. That why wouldn't he just leave them disembodied? But maybe it was to prove to us that they can be disembodied and then they want to be in a body of some sort. So that they can be. So that orb thing being a disembodied thing makes sense to me. That's a good explanation, Mike.
That was the only thing I could think of. Because, I mean, and then, you got possession, people that, they get possessed. And then I think that the reason that you have possession is because they're greedy. They want to be able to feel and taste and do everything that we do, but they don't have a limit. They want it all, and I think eventually they're kind of like a parasite. Eventually they kill the body and they wait to move to the next,
That makes sense. That absolutely makes sense, because I think that someone that has the Holy Spirit in them, that place, they can't be possessed because the Holy Spirit is now in there. But I do believe that there is a spot, if you don't have that Holy Spirit in you, there's a spot for a demon to possess you. Like, you know, that's part of it. And like you said, I do think they are greedy. I think they want what they want. They want every pleasure of the flesh they can get. And who knows? And I think, you know, I think they can give special powers to their host. I think what we see in the media today, I think what we see when it comes to rock stars or pop stars or whatever. These, I think I dare say that some of them are possessed. And there's a reason why they don't look in mirrors. There's a reason why they hang out with a whole bunch of people all the time in these big posses, because when they're alone, the demon come out and talk to them. You know, just all this stuff. I think that. So yeah.
But I'm actually studying that right now. I'm studying that. A lot of people were asking, why do they not break the glass? Why do they not go through the glass? You know, if you're in a car or you're in your house, why are they pecking on the glass, but they don't break through it? And I'm starting to find a lot of good stuff on that. There's actually a lot of biblical backing at why they would not like glass.
And that's like I said before. They have that Annabelle doll in a glass box. They have that Robert doll in a glass box. And they tell you not to open it.
And all the people right now, this is my opinion, this field, when I first started, I thought it was going to be a interesting, fun, everybody talk about their encounters or experiences. The more that I got into this field, the more I learned there is a heavy darkness that lingers in this field.
Yes.
And whenever you're out trying to shed light on the darkness, it's not going to be happy, and it's going to attack you. You've got people out there that promote blasphemy. You got people that astral project, and you know, and those are the things I never thought of when I started this field. You know, I was like, why are these people doing that? But then you sit back and you look at it. What are we actually talking about? What are we entertaining, and what are we hunting?
We're hunting the enemies of the Lord. Yeah. And we're exposing their existence, for one thing. And if we're in a war, you don't want to be exposed of that you even exist and where you're located and what's going on. So yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
And it's scary.
Yes, it is. And most people that get into the Bigfoot hunting, you know, they do it as a hobby, and Bigfoot's in right now. We all know this. So you can go down to some random gas station and get 20 different Bigfoot stickers. I mean, it's part of it. And everybody thinks that, you know, it's no big deal. It's just big hairy fella, yay. It's not that. And when you really start digging down deep and seeing things and connecting them and talking to people that have experiences, and it just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. And then you have to have a come to Jesus meeting with it. It's like, what is happening? Yeah. What is this? And I believe my dad was definitely able to be led by God to what these were and help other people find out. And I feel like it wasn't just him. I don't feel like it was just him. You know, you've got folks like L.A. Marzulli, Mike yourself, Brooks yourself. Everybody, almost we collectively as a body of Christ, you know, kind of collectively, this is what they are. Yeah. So, you know, type of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay. That's like, I'm 60 miles from Roswell. And I've been to the museum. I've been, I don't know, probably in my life, I've probably been about 5 times. But whenever I learned, after learning about the Greys, and the last time I went to the museum, and I'm walking around realizing what I'm looking at, and looking at all these people that are just going, oh, wow, this is cool, this is neat. It made me want to go, don't you know what you're looking at?
Yes, don't you know what you're looking
really, Yeah. Do you not know what these things are?
We kind of did the same thing when we went to Washington D.C. My wife's grandfather got buried up in Arlington National Cemetery. We walked all around Washington D.C. and we kind of had a similar experience. It was like, okay, yeah, these are cool monuments, but this is all pagan temples.
That's
these are all pagan temples, and I was like, there's Roman Greek gods everywhere, overall every building. And I looked at my wife, and she, she had actually been to Europe. She had been to Rome before, and she was like, "This is so European. This is so Roman." I said, and then I asked her this. Yes, and then I asked her this. I said, "What if Rome didn't die? It just moved, and we are Rome. America is just Rome, just moved over, and if we are, that's a scary thought."
Yeah.
Biblically.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get into that, but
that's right. That's right.
We've talked about that a lot.
But I mean, if we're not Rome, we sure are trying to act like it. At least in the capital, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And literally, they. So when you walk up to like these monuments, like the Lincoln Memorial. Well, it's not called the Lincoln Memorial. It's the Lincoln Temple. It literally calls it a temple. And it puts Lincoln like on this throne like he's Zeus. Like it's wild. It's crazy.
It is.
It's sorry. I get really wild and deep into that stuff.
I agree, because I mean it's laid out. They're all laid out, even geographically, where these they're at. I mean, it's wild.
And then we even have the light bearer standing right out in the harbor.
Yep. Yeah, the light bearer standing right out in the harbor, and it's like, oh my God.
Right.
So we're if we're trying to hide it, we ain't doing a good job.
Yep.
So it's very it's definitely the enemy's definitely working, and I sure pray for our nation.
Yeah.
And whatnot, and Bigfoot and Nephilim are only a small part of the enemy.
That's right.
They're just a piece of that puzzle.
Yeah, just a piece of that war plan, and that's what we as Christians have to understand. I know that's probably not where the Bigfoot folks wanted to go tonight, but that just is what it is.
That's what I believe.
The evidence don't always lead you where you want it to go, but it always leads you to the truth if you follow it.
Shoot, that's you nailed that. You nailed that.
And your dad is the prime example of finding the truth.
Thank you. Yes. I appreciate that. It's definitely not what he wanted it to be. I'll be honest with you. He didn't want this. He just wanted the truth, and he definitely didn't want it to be Nephilim. And he fought it. He fought it. I promise you, he fought it for a long time, for a year or two before, and it was kind of like, here's what they are. You have to admit it. You have to look at the evidence, and I don't think there's any harder evidence than that DNA study. I think that Dad's book, and I'll be reading it on continuing on the Sasquatch Awareness or Dad's channel, the Scott Carpenter channel. We're going to get into the DNA study, what happened, all the gory details of that book, and we'll just start reading it chapter by chapter when we get time, and talk about it. And the reason why I'm reading it is because I want people to know I don't care about selling books. That's just not my gig. So, but I like getting information out. So I'm just going to read the book to you. So that's
awesome.
That's kind of my thing. I mean this. I'm not bragging. Dad left me enough money. I don't care. I want to do this because I genuinely. I'm being real with you guys. I can't respond to every comment. I can't respond to every email, but I genuinely do give a crap. I do care. I do care about the folks, and I just want to leave off where Dad left off is the Sasquatch Awareness Project and caring and helping people. not about making money, caring and helping people. That's what we want to do, and trying to bring people the truth that, that we believe that the Lord led us to.
Yeah.
He'd definitely be proud of you, no doubt.
Yeah.
I appreciate
and
that.
a lot of people admired and respected your dad.
Thank you.
And I know we're all ecstatic that you've taken the channel.
That means a lot to me. Thank you.
We think that's awesome. That's part of your legacy, and to carry on your dad's. And that's awesome.
Thank you. I sure appreciate it. There's definitely a lot of footage that he's got too, that I'm just trying to figure out how do I put that out there and make it not be boring for people, because it's literally just him walking through the woods. But that was his research. I think people don't realize, and Mike, I'm sure you know this, man. There's just tons of hours where you're just sitting there just looking like this. that was just doing. So, and that's not who I am. I'm not that guy to be able to sift through that footage. So I'm thinking about just like, hey, here's like a 10-minute clip of random footage. If you all want to look through it, go ahead. So,
people will love that. People will love that. People love that.
So I honestly might do that. I would find that, like I said, I would find that absolutely the most boring thing in the world. But if people want to do that, I'll probably start putting those up and being like, here's this footage from this, and people can help. And if you find a piece of footage, great. Post it on your channel. Post it on things. Look what I found. That's fine with me. So I'm not that guy that's like, oh, that's my picture. I don't care.
I don't really have any more questions for you, man. What I do want to do, though, is I want to give you the floor, and I want you to plug all your channels, say whatever you want to say.
Yeah, man. If you can't, please just follow my T-Carp channel. It's T-Carp on YouTube. I really love the bushcraft stuff. Love knives, guns, prepping, all that stuff. The cool I am trying to get monetized. So I can make 10 cents per video, so something like that. We're going to be giving away a lot of dad stuff. So the cool thing is like, okay, now I've got all dad stuff. I can't keep it all. And dad had a lot of cool bushcraft, knives and gear and bags and stuff, and even some Bigfoot memorabilia. We're going to start giving that away, and because I can't keep it all, and it needs to go to people that would care about it. So we just gave away. I just gave away 2 knives. I got to send some knives to some folks, and we're going to be giving away some more stuff. But I would really appreciate if you're interested in that stuff. Follow me at T-Carp, and then I've got another buddy that I do stuff with. It's called the T-Carp T-Man channel, and we talk sports and we talk fun stuff and all that. We like it. So if you follow those 2 channels, I'd sure appreciate it.
Talk about how good those Sooners are, right?
Oh, those balls, buddy. You better be praying to the Lord tonight, buddy, because we're coming tomorrow. So, and I might be eating my words, Mike. Who knows? We'll do that. But for all those, go Vols. Brooks, you a football fan?
No, let's see. Go Tech and Cowboys. I'm Texas girl.
You're Texas girl. So there you go. Go Cowboys then. All right. Well, I sure do appreciate you guys so much for inviting me on. I've had a blast. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure, man. You're welcome to come back anytime.
Absolutely. Have me back whenever y'all want. I sure enjoy it. So
this is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep,
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
Y'all have a good one, and bye-bye now.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you saw it. That was the Scott Carpenter's son right there, the legend. His son, I believe, will carry on what he's doing, and his dad will be very proud of him. He's a good man, and he got a lot of information, a lot of truth dumped in his lap, and I look forward to seeing him share it, Brooks. I can't wait. I'm going to be watching him read the book.
Oh, I know. It's awesome. It is.
I will for sure. Guys, go over support him. He really, I can't think of anybody else that I would recommend more. Go over, support him, help him hit that monetization number. That's really hard to do. being a creator is really hard to do. It's really hard to hit those numbers. So go over, show him some support. I don't believe you'll regret it. He's a really good guy. And as always, guys, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. And I guess if we have any more trouble with them orbs and stuff, we'll just send them to Brooks's house.
No.
They're yours, Brooks.
No. Here's my guard dog. He'll get them.
He'll get them. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We love each and every one of you. We'll see you on the next one.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.